Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you for coming and thank you for having taken the time for this chat. I have read a few of your thoughts and comments, and I'm absolutely fascinated by some of your conclusions, which means at the end of the day, even though the efficiency of the product itself has improved, the way we are using the raw materials and the rare resources of the planet has not been reduced. And I think you call this the rebound effect.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this? Because I think it's fascinating. It's completely the opposite what we have been doing so far, and I would like to learn from you what that could mean.
I think the history of the technology shows that every time we have made some efficiency progress, this efficiency progress is more or less partially or totally eaten by the fact that we are going to consume more in volumes. If we take the example of this long-distance car sharing, what happens, of course, is I go from Paris to Dunkirk with 3 people in the car instead of 1. You say, great, I have saved the travel of 2 cars, so it's really an efficiency of, let's say, 66%. But in fact, it's not the way it's working, because in the car, maybe one person was taking the train before, but it's now too expensive, and it's better to take a car. And maybe another person, because it's so cheap to make this new travel, the offer is like 10 euros or 15 euros. Well, maybe I can go and take a beer with a friend, and I will create an additional demand for transport, for mobility. And the third person, the one who is driving, maybe is even doing more often this Paris-Dunkirk. So at the end, I think when we look at the number of liters of fuel that is going out of the refineries, you have saved nothing.
The technology breakthroughs are always used to go a little bit further in the search for safety or comfort or convenience, which then doesn't fix the environmental issue. We are also bringing other solutions like car sharing and shared mobility through our Free2move mobility service brand. But if I was to have a huge fleet of cars to ensure that mobility is shared, eventually I would increase the level of utilization of each mobility device. Eventually I will reduce the number of cars that we have on the road. Eventually I would go in a direction which is more reasonable vis-à-vis the planet, but with the rebound effect.
Absolutely.
Eventually I would make the problem worse. So again, I don't think we can address this issue if we don't start by 2 basic things. One is, what is the enjoyable low carbon footprint life for the future that will make us happier than we are today, and that protects the planet? Point number 1. Point number 2, how we align regulations across the major regions of the world, North America, Europe, Asia, so that we all work in the same direction and we put our brains and our creativity at the service of finding the best solutions. I think that's the second direction.
Exactly. I think many of the cars are used at the same time. So, okay, maybe we could reduce, I don't know, by a factor 2, 3, I don't know, but for sure not by a factor 10. That's the first point. Second point is this rebound effect that you are mentioning, and I think it will create some additional volumes if we stay in the same system, in the same constraints of mobility from work to home and so on. So I think sharing is interesting, and there will be some niche markets. And for instance, I really like the fact that the car sharing could be really for the commuters, because here the rebound effect is maybe a bit lower. I don't know.
More limited, yeah.
Yeah, because at the end you have to go to work, that's it. But anyway, I think this will probably remain part of the solution, but we would make the same mistake as for the electric car. If we say, okay, the electric car is 100% of the solution, let's go for it. The same way, the car sharing, super, that's the solution, let's go for it. I think it's only part of the solution. And we have to faire feu de tout bois, we would say in French.
Well, I understand that we still have a lot of things that we need to propose, many challenges, and I completely agree with you that we need a menu with different components. At the end of the day, the automotive industry and at PSA, even though we are doing many efforts with mobility services, with recycling, with making our cars zero emission, etc., all of this needs to be embarked in a complete change of the way we live in the modern societies. And we are very open for that discussion, and I hope that this discussion somewhere contributed for PSA to understand better the world in which we are operating, and if we can bring more to the society, we are of course here for that. And we don't understand the sustainability of our company if it was not fully aligned with the expectations of our societies. But we also believe that the expectations of the societies are very contradictory, they are very unstable, and so far we need to clarify also that direction. So thank you very much, it was fascinating.
Thank you for your
openness and
transparency.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.